following speaker has worked in numerous fields, from basic research to human technology, branding and organizational studies. I'm honored to present the Professor of Psychology at University of Helsinki and productive scientific writer, Mr. Göte Nyman.
And you can probably see it as well. And let me see where I get slides. So I'll tell a few words on my background, and you might wonder why I'm here talking about these psychological things. And my background has been in working in different psychological contexts where we have been doing product development, brand development, organizational development, and doing now it's on. Do you hear me? No, just a moment. Now it says let me see. I'm a technologist, actually. Okay. Believe me or not, I'm specialized in human technology interactions. So. All right. What I'm trying to tell you is that, and I've been wondering a little bit about my message, listening to these excellent presentations of co-creation and interaction and that type of work. And I will be focusing on how to understand individual. And my own perspective to these themes is that in the end we need to understand how individuals react to what we offer for them, how they react to what we call services and service environments. But at the same time, there are so many things happening in the society right now. And what I really would like to understand, and that's one of the passions of me at the moment, and it is that how should we look at the psychology of tomorrow? I sometimes call it a bit arrogantly maybe that revitalizing psychology. And I'm quite sure that many of you in your work, you meet all kinds of psychological concepts. And now I'm trying to tell you the way I'm started to think about this phenomena, and I hope that it somehow creates noise in your thinking. I took this is a favorite building of mine. It's at Stanford, but it's kind of a multi-religious, multicultural temple where people from different religions can go and spend time and enjoy the space, the spiritual space, whatever your religious background is, and that somehow fits very well to what we are talking here about today. So I took some examples. I used this before and to demonstrate how different psychologies work on people. So the theme was here, how to reach people. It's actually simple. Limit the offerings, like the vodka shop in 1925 Soviet, where people were queuing for vodka. But it's not only something historical. This is a similar situation here when the broker bank Emily was selling what people thought that they are profitable shares. And people were queuing there in the Aleksanterikatu in Helsinki. Well, it can happen also by institution. These are the presidential elections in US this last year. And you probably followed what was happening there. And here it was the institution, the institution of voting and the whole democratic system. So people did what they had to do when there was no other alternative. And then, of course, the more simple and more everyday type of force that is used and is to think of service as if we would like to reach the bodies, but not necessarily the souls. So how to think about the souls of those humans that we call customers or people who enjoy the service? I took one model which actually I like very much, and maybe some of you know this, that how to understand and if possible predict how people will choose, how they will behave, what they will buy. And this Fishbein and Eisen model is claimed to be rather effective in predicting what people will do, how they will select and choose what they will buy, whether they will buy something or whether they will not. There are several of these type of models, but this is just an example, but it represents rather well the type of knowledge that we have today about human psychology in these contexts. So there are many standard data sets which are used in many ways, like here it's some beliefs that people have or attitudes that they have, or then there might be some norms according to which they are expected to follow, they feel that they are expected to follow, so they have their subjective norms, and then there are intentions to do something. Now if you look at almost any this type of consumer model or human behavior model, you will see that there are several things missing. And I've listed these here. One is that there's actually not many sources from where you can collect intention data. There's no such term as intention knowledge. Cognitive scientists talk about, and market people talk about intentions, but actually we don't really have too many ways of collecting intention data. And if you think how everyday phenomenon it is, we always have our intention long-term, short-term. Well, then some psychoanalysts may tell that, okay, people just say that they intend to do this and that. But for example, if someone of you says that I intend to go home now, I don't have any reason to doubt it. So there are many things that the intention knowledge carries of us and has a huge predictive power. And then what I call opportunity perception. Wherever you go, let's say you go to a new restaurant, to a new hotel, what you're actually doing is that you have your radar on and you are scanning your possibilities to do what you intend to do or what you are after. If it's not even a specific intention, then you are still scanning for opportunities to achieve what is important for you. But even opportunity perception, that's a word that doesn't exist in psychology books or in cognitive psychology books at all. You find opportunity perception in the studies that concern human entrepreneurship topics and entrepreneurial behavior. So the opportunity there is seen as kind of a business opportunity. But it's actually a natural part of our everyday life. Motivation. If I were kind of seriously in a consultancy firm looking for the powers of understanding human behavior, I would be looking at motivational theories and motivational practices and forget the emotions that now everyone is talking about. And I don't know how you follow this, but what has happened is that first we had this cognitive emperor, that everything was cognitive science and cognitive aspects of human behavior. Then there are these brain scientists and other people who started talking that, hey, emotions are important. And of course they are important. If we don't have emotions, we are dead. But then it will not take very long time before it will be noticed that, okay, it's a cul-de-sac there as well. And then they will turn to motivation. But there are not very good ways to map human motivations. And then finally, care. I will come back to this. But all these data sources, if you look at them, they have one thing in common, that if you use kind of a typical data analysis, data screening methods that you today, for example, collect from your customers or from the market, Then we have different ways of data mining, trying to get the data and by mining, look at the possible background factors. But my claim is actually that this is kind of a waste of technology, and we should do more about the quality of the data that we are using in the first place. I'll come back to that. So these are just examples. I don't go into details, but there's an interesting old photo of people queuing for getting an autograph of Elvis, and also people queuing for having fun there. If you compare these situations to the queuing in the examples I showed, there you can see that, okay, they might be queuing, but they are doing something totally different, and they are not suffering. For some reason, they are enjoying it, and but that's a longer story. So why is it so difficult to think about care? I was thinking how to present it, that where does this care about the customer, where is it somehow disappearing? And maybe this is a little bit exaggeration of how it is, but you all know these developmental aspects in any business and any environments that actually are blind in that sense, that they take very well take care of what they are supposed to take care of, but the care for the guy in the middle of them is of course something that is easily forgotten. And these co-creation themes and co-design themes, of course, they are made just to solve that problem, that he will not be forgotten. This is my favorite example that I used to, in trying to explain that what is important for a person who comes to a place where some service is expected. And I found this photo from Amish community, and then I listed the most important psychological factors that are relevant. And it's interesting, the etymology of the service concept partly goes back to kind of a collective formulas for the conduct of divine services. So I think it's a very ambitious goal, and I think this is what we should have, how to provide divine services. But if you think about them, these Amishes who are in a small town or small village and going to a church, what is relevant for them? They're going to a service. They have their dependencies, they can't go anywhere, and because of their background, they have to obey certain patterns. They wouldn't go to any church, any place, and in any way. They have some perceptions of their environments according to which they have to choose and be prepared to do whatever they want. They have their own plans and actions, but they have also expectations of what they want from the ceremony or the service. They have an identity. They are ready for some exchanges, some social exchanges, whether already on the way or during the service. They have their habits, opportunities, intentions, and possibly some even practical transactions. Now, if you think about the psychology of this kind of behavior, it's very complex. There are many things at the same time. And there's no way of finding simple psychological concepts that will somehow cover it. Now, it's possible to collect data more and more. And you all know these, what I have listed here. Maybe I don't read through all this, but it's possible to get all kinds of data from our customers, whether it's based on tagging, querying, pattern recognition, or following their behavior patterns, collecting data through massive data collection systems and having the computational power, then having these ubiquitous reach by technology from wherever, and the big data. You all know that we are getting more and more data easily from the customers or people who we want to follow and understand their reactions and experiences. But what I believe is going to be a significant transformation in future. And it has to do with that we have to create and use active psychology concepts. By active psychology, I mean that we would understand motivations, intentions, and the way people are looking forward to whatever aspects of their lives we might be interested in. and then creating forward-looking behavior analytics. This is different to using data analytics from massive behavior data, where we try to compute out and do some predictions. And by this I mean that people are able to express their active intentions or behaviors, or allow someone to record that data in one way or another, which is different. Then you don't have to go and compute what their intentions might be if they are expressing them by themselves. And of course, it's a good question how that will be possible. And I think future internet, and I don't know if many of you have heard about this quantified self movement, which is kind of originally, I think, from California, where people have started quantifying their behaviors, own behaviors and aspects of their self, and offering that information for whatever purpose. The last one is something that we don't have. Some people have asked me that, hey, what is that? We don't have data structures that would make it easy to describe what people feel, what they intend, how they experience, and how they will organize their life and behavior. But that's a little bit theoretical aspect. So from all this, what I have learned, I don't spend much time here, but I will just explain how I see this. And I'd like to encourage you to think about this, that there are lots of psychological theory frameworks that we always meet in different contexts. But in design environments, in service design environments, the question is that which psychological concepts are relevant and which we should be using in order to understand that what is driving behavior. And I have become even more and more convinced that whatever psychological concepts you use to describe people with whom you prepare your work or for whom you design, you have to have kind of a requirements for them, and the most important one is relevant and value, and forget about the theoretical purity, or forget the present day available psychological concept. Most of the cognitive psychology, nothing in neuropsychology, intelligence, personality, have really actually nothing to do with this. So what I'm actually preaching here is that a courage to innovate the concepts that you will use in trying to understand what is important in psychological terms for people and in their behavior. So there are lots of alternatives, and of course you have to, in your own work and in this specific context that you work, you have to learn to choose the ones and develop them further. And of course sometimes you find kind of promising concepts from elsewhere, but I am really very much for the idea of doing that yourself. This is just, I don't spend time, but it's an example that we have been using in studying computer game experiences. We had about 2,000 people here playing games, and we spent a long time finding out that what are the relevant psychological concepts of a computer game experience. There are about 15 or 20 about them. And well, this is scientific research, so we've been doing it statistically correctly. But basically the idea is to innovate the psychology that is relevant in computer game environment. It's Jari Takatalo from my group who has been developing this over the years. And but the same, if you quickly probably noticed a few words there which describe how they are. Then I found out before coming here an old example where I noticed that I've been using this kind of an approach myself in one project, but I will just shortly describe what it is. It's a cruiser in Finland. I didn't ask for permission to present this, but it's already from 1997, and so I try to hide whatever it is. But the problem was that what happens during a cruise? And so what we did is that we look at the way people enter, what is the relevant behavior and experiential scope of that entrance, what happens from start to end, from evening to morning, and what is the atmosphere, what are the relevant behavioral aspects, and how they occur in different parts and different services. And the good point about this was that I remember this case especially that because everyone was lost at what is psychologically relevant there. And of course there is no kind of a guidebook where you could find it. So you have to go there, maybe talk to people, create observational systems, and then be ready to present hypothetical psychological concepts. And what happened was that actually it made the whole board of directors quiet and taking seriously the psychology what's happening there. And then started the design process, that how do we want this to happen, or do we want this to change? This care, time is running, I'll just make a reference to Paul Suni, from whom I adopted this concept. We work together, and he would like to introduce that care not as a kind of a, in Finnish we say kukkahattu huolenpito, but the care in a very wide sense, which means caring about all these things when we are designing something. And even I'm a little bit doubtful about the co-creation process, that whether these kind of care aspects remain alive there. And then a list of some underestimated problems before I finish my talk. Maybe I don't have to go through. This, that one is a serious one. I could spend more time and maybe you know more of it. How much relevant knowledge is lost in the business-to-business change that all complex service environments are using. And there are interesting examples where actually really valuable knowledge is lost, because in the business-to-business links it's not relevant, but in the business-to-business-to-business-to-business-to-customer link it would be relevant. But that's another story. So I will finish here, and if someone wants to know what this is, I can tell you over the wine or when we finish the interesting day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. As we have now learned, there is time for questions, couple of questions. Okay, yeah.
Maybe. Hello?
Yeah, I think I hear a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the talk. I think we forget the psychology in everyday design. We do. There's some great books written on it, Donald Norman and many others before it. But the care side, what I see in co-design workshops is actually a sense of caring for each other happening, because people share their stories about their perspective. So I actually think the care gets built in there somewhere.
Okay.
And maybe it's because there's a greater sense of ownership of collectively understanding the challenge. And it's a form of caring, I think. But I'd welcome your thought.
Yeah. Well, Paul Suni, who I'm referred to here, he's actually an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. He was using this term originally, but in explaining that how was it possible that such complex products as they were producing in Silicon Valley with so many risk factors, that they were able to somehow run these complex projects. And he was actually claiming that there is care for the process, for the quality, for the details, and for the ability of all peoples participating. And there was the ownership as well. But we are just trying to somehow open this concept and find a place. And I agree what you say but then it depends how you build this community of co-creation, or where do you get the values of that community. And but again, it's also a new concept for us, but I'm quite excited about relevance.
Okay.
There is a hand and a person.
I just wanted to pick up this care theme in service design, if it's somehow there and implicit. There's Robert Young, who has written a good article about the responsibility of designer in service design process. and is very explicit about the role of designer when facilitating this kind of process of co-creation. That I don't think the care aspect is there if it's not taken care of. That it has to have enough space, it has to give enough space for the participants or co-creators, that it becomes something that it's a clear kind of action or theme. It's a very good article in Service Design with Theory by Robert Young, if you are interested about this care aspect in service design. He has been pondering about it.
It's a good question that, and even we don't have kind of a straightforward model of it, but trying to somehow open the question that where does that care building start, and how do you orient it, and still, because it's not something that it's not the managerial aspects that you do, but it has to do with the value, how you formulate the values, and how you somehow make sure that this aspect of care, which means that, as I've listed here, it's not only of the outcome, but it's of the people who participate, it's of the partners who are members, whether it's business-to-business partners, and of course customers, but also the technology and the materials used. So I don't know, maybe this sounds a little bit kind of overly optimistic, but I think that every company culture has to create their type or their way of expressing this, and maybe the company cultures or the firm cultures already carry it into how they do it. But anyway, I just wanted to share with you this idea, and as you can hear from me, we haven't finished this, we are just starting, and like to learn about it.
I have a small, simple question to you as well as the earlier talker from Aalto University. I'm an engineer. I don't really get the real term without describing what is design actually.
Design.
In Finnish I understand what you're talking, but in the real term, design is something different than what we understand as an engineer.
Design. So that is a good question for me, especially. But I would say that design is kind of a creation of a concept that organizes our knowledge in a new way. And but I don't know if that matches you who are professionals here, but I've always seen design as a kind of a creation of on the basis of available knowledge, something that is novel, but that can be conceptually described. And then it's another matter whether it becomes a reality. And in service design, the same thing, that we have all the elements, but the way we somehow construct the concept, that I understand as service design. But I'll be careful, you know, this is first time I define design.
Okay, thank you, Göte.